Hello and welcome to today's webinar. We appreciate you spending the next half hour with us. My name is Amanda and I will be your host today. Please contact me if you need any technical assistance by typing into the chat box, or if you're watching the recording in our online learning center, you can email support@kit.org for further instructions and support. And as usual, the slide note handout for today's webinar is also available in our online learning center in the resources section for this event. And today's webinar is part of our infant-toddler series, and it is on language and processing in the toddler years. And your presenter today is Philip Collazo. Philip has been working for 8 years with the military child and youth programs worldwide, and he comes with over 18 years of experience as a special educator and behavior specialist. And overall, Philip strives to incorporate multisensory approaches to learning, including the arts, yoga, and brain science. And with that, I am pleased to turn it over to Philip.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We are going to take a much deeper view and look into how language skills develop in the early years. So this is our learning objective, or the concrete thing that we're going to accomplish during our time together. Today, we are going to correctly match strategies to skill categories that support babies' language and processing development. Now, disclaimer, I'm going to use the word educator to refer to all of the adults who are working with children in early learning and child and youth programs. I'm also going to use the word babies to refer to the grouping of infants, pre-toddlers, and toddlers. So I like to make sense of the world by seeing the connections and the parallels in it. And if you've ever participated in one of my webinars, you know I also like to tell stories. This presentation will be no different. I've enjoyed growing things in the garden since I was a kid. I feel the need to tell you that I was, and can still be, an impatient person. I can remember planting a seed with my grandparents, then running out the next day to see if the flower, the fruit, or the vegetable grew. Now, most of us learn the process for growing a seed into a flower at a really young age. So we need to give your seed soil, water, and sun in order for it to grow. The thing that took me extra time to learn was that a plant also needs time. Well, what if we thought of growing skills in children the way we would grow a plant? What do we need as educators to help our students grow their language and their processing skills? The big people in the classroom provide the right conditions. And much like a plant, most children's brains will develop these skills organically, almost on their own. When we finally get to the point that we can grow that flower over time, we want to remember that all the flowers of all the tomorrows are in the seeds of today. And throughout this presentation, we're going to discuss some strategies that will help the language skills of tomorrow develop in the students who are in your classroom today. Let's break it down a little bit. By language and processing, we mean a child's ability to understand and communicate their wants, needs, and feelings, and eventually the wants, needs, and feelings of others. This is our goal. And really importantly, the language expectation for children who from 6 months through the age of 2. So notice that it's about the communication and understanding of wants, needs, and feelings, not necessarily your ability to understand the ABCs or know colors or recognize numbers. It's about communicating needs. Specialists in this field identified 3 building block skills that help toddlers develop language and processing, and they are movement skills, which will be represented by the footprints. Although walking is an important movement skill, this category includes both gross motor, how children move their body, and fine motor, how children move their hands. The next skill is called receptive language, represented by an ear. We're going to get into this a little bit more in a few more slides. Finally, we get to expressive language skills, represented by a face talking. Now, most research indicates that these skills develop in succession, in order. However, educators know that each student is unique and learns in individual ways. What do we do is, how do we know that each skill strengthens each other? Well, science tells us that movement skills greatly impact a child's receptive language. And receptive language is the precursor or the building block under which children will develop expressive language skills. Did you ever wonder why so many people talk with their hands? Well, scientists now know that movement helps us remember and use language better. And these two skills are intricately linked in our brains. Brain scientists, with the help of brain mapping technology, know that motor movements and language processing skills are controlled by similar parts of the brain, especially in babies. The cerebellum, highlighted here in orange, seems to be where the action is. And at this developmental stage, multiple studies show us that when babies develop muscle control and movement, you might know this as ambulation, we tend to see a huge increase in language skill development. This relationship is highlighted in the finding that babies who are walking tend to have more expansive communication skills. On the next slide, we'll discover a few simple and practical strategies that strengthen movement skills in babies. So a strategy that many of you may already be using is to encourage babies to move their hands and/or feet when you're teaching words. So try this. While a child is laying on the changing table, speak to the baby in syllables and gently clap their hands or feet along to the rhythm of your voice. Like this: my name is Philip. I would do this with the baby's hands gently. Since physical movement and exploration are such important building blocks for language skills, try this. Rearrange the play area by switching the location of toy bins, carpets, and materials on a regular basis. Educators tend to feel like children get bored quickly with the toys in their room. When you switch around the placement of toys, it encourages children to explore. Let's take a quick look at what that could look like in your classroom. Now, you can access all the videos we're going to show in the resources section following the presentation. But did you notice how the child moved her body to the right-hand side of the room to access the toys, where she was previously focused on the left-hand side? Exploration fosters something we call mental flexibility in babies, which is a really important building block for the next set of language skills. The more babies move and come into contact with elements in their environment, the more words they need to understand and communicate their needs, wants, and feelings. So let's move on to the next set of skills. Receptive language skills make up a child's ability to understand. Think of it as the language that we are receiving. It's the communication that we hear or interpret, and it's usually the first language skill to develop. Let's explore two strategies that strengthen receptive language skills. First one is try using descriptive commenting when you're talking to babies. This strategy is about modeling conversational speech for babies, and it helps them learn the skills they'll need to form their first words. Take a second. Imagine this. Imagine you were describing a cool car to someone over the phone. If you were to tell them, hey, wow, that's a really cool car, it doesn't paint a very good picture for your listener. But if you describe the car's color, shape, and size, now the listener is getting a better picture. Try narrating an interaction with a child as you help them wash their hands. I am putting soap on your hands. We rub them together. Put them under the water. Wow, that feels refreshing. Think of using descriptive commenting much in the way we would think of narrating a movie, for example. Harvard Center for the Developing Child expanded this strategy in the serve and return strategy. It's a 5-step practice that strengthens communication skills. You can download the complete handout from the resources section following this presentation, and you can access another webinar that focuses much more on this. Again, that resource will be in the resources section later on in the presentation. Educators agree that children tend to learn through repetition. Well, scientists now think that language skills are learned best when the adult teaches words by repeating them at least 3 times or more. The adult should change their tone of voice as well as their pronunciation of words. You can even try singing them. Let's see what that might look like with a child.
Soft touches. Soft touches. Soft touches. Soft touches. Soft, soft, soft touches.
Did you notice that the child in the video seemed to understand what soft touches were, and then went so far as to demonstrate it using the paw of the stuffed animal? When children hear your words, they're really focusing on your mouth and on what your hands are doing, especially under the age of 1. So having this close and intimate contact with a child will help them visualize your mouth moving and can help them hear and understand a little bit better. Since we are talking about how adults' communication with babies affects their individual communication styles, let's do a little reflecting of our own. So in general, how would you say that you communicate with babies? Would you say, A, I sing most of the time I communicate? B, I usually speak in my everyday voice? C, I blend a lot of styles and often make up my own sounds? D, I don't talk much with babies. Enter your selection in the poll box provided below. Keep in mind that there are no right answers, nor is there any judgment about your individual process. We just want to get a sense of how the group's communication styles affect classroom routines. So take a second and enter your answer into the poll box. How do you tend to communicate with babies? Okay, so some people sing when they communicate. Some people just use their everyday voice, but most people blend a lot of styles and make up sounds. And we have nobody who's not talking with babies right now. Just want to say, if you're not talking with babies, it's okay. Sometimes it feels weird. It's kind of like some people talking to dogs. I don't mean to equate kids with dogs. I'm just saying it feels like there's no reciprocation, so why should I talk? That's going to lead us into the next topic really quickly. I feel the need to take a tangent down the road of baby talk opinions and facts. Now, depending on your experience, upbringing, cultural expectation, work environment, your personal communication style may reflect your opinion about baby talk. Many teachers have told me, I don't use baby talk. It doesn't teach children to express their feelings. Or others say that baby talk doesn't really expand their vocabulary. During my preparation for this webinar, I came across a lot of research that indicates that baby talk actually models speech patterns and encourages word formation. And often, baby talk has an underlying cultural purpose that conveys affection. Now, in all of the studies, you know what? Balance is the key. Adults who used a mixture of baby talk and traditional speech were shown to support language development more than those who didn't use a variety. So here we go. Balance and variety are key. We still want to encourage as much language and talking with babies, but don't worry if you're not making sense or you're using nonsensical sounds. It's conveying affection. It's a form of communication. So here we go. We've been talking now about how we express ourselves, so it makes sense that we arrive at expressive language skills. Now, these skills make up a child's ability to communicate. It's verbal and nonverbal language, and it usually develops after receptive language. Now, I want to heighten and really focus on usually, because there is no static rule. Every kid develops at its own pace. But in general, this is the last of the language skills to develop. So we're ready to work on expressive language and communication strategies. Research suggests that teaching children to communicate with baby sign is one of the best ways to strengthen expressive language skills. So this strategy is really a 2-for-1. Not only do we want to teach babies using sign, but the first words that we teach them should be requests. We teach requests first because babies experience the greatest payoff. Because when I make this sign, an adult can immediately respond, or almost immediately, and give me what I'm asking for. That's the payoff. I do something and I get something. It's really important to demonstrate the sign in front of the child, and then gently shape the child's hands to form the sign. Finally, provide an opportunity for the child to use the sign or to increase their independence. Let's take a second and look at what that could look like in an interaction with the child.
More. So let's put your hands together. You have to take this finger and put these together and put your finger, your thumb and your index finger. There you go. And more. Very good. Can you do it by yourself? More. Very good.
So, did you notice that the adult was using repetition? Did you see how the toddler looked between the adult's face and her hands? Think about how you can incorporate this strategy with the emergent talkers in your classroom. Keep in mind, all children learn at their own pace, and some will pick it up right after one demonstration. But some kids need that hand-over-hand support to form the signs. Along with more, all done, and go are two other general signs that can be used in a variety of situations. KIT's Simple Signs Tip Sheet depicts a variety of other helpful introductory signs to teach babies. More information is available in the resources section following the presentation. So here we go. It's time to match the skills in the left column with the correct strategies in the right 2 columns. For example, type the 3 numbers and corresponding letters into the chat box below. So 7UV, 8WX, 9YZ. Take a couple of seconds and match the skills with the strategies. Going to give it a second. We've got some answers coming in. So I'm seeing One, right. Movement skills relate to clapping hands while teaching words, and that's C, and E, rearranging the play space. Really important. Remember, when you rearrange the play space, it's encouraging mental flexibility. And that's the precursor to language development in babies. So great answer. I'm seeing 2. Yes, so receptive language skills. Number 2 correlates with B, repeating words 3 times or more, and D, using descriptive commenting. Now remember, descriptive commenting is not, oh, how cute you are. Oh, that's such a pretty headband. So adjectives like pretty, and they convey affection, but they're not helping children develop a new language repertoire. So descriptive commenting is like narrating. Nice, thanks for making that connection. Finally, expressive language skills. Number 3, correlate with strategy A, pairing words with signs, yes. And most importantly, F, teaching those requests first. So I want to take a quick second and do a check-in. We've talked about the 6 strategies, and we've correlated them with the 3 skill areas. Are there any questions about how these things relate in a child's brain? Feel free to enter those questions into the chat box, and we'll take a second and make sure we give you some answers. I'm seeing the answers coming in. Great. It seems like everybody is getting the point of this webinar. Nice. Thank you so much for everybody for sharing those answers. So let's review some of the building blocks that babies need to develop their communication skills. It all starts with movement. So help babies move their bodies and explore their environments. It's one of the most beneficial things that we can do. Once a baby's movement skills are in development, we'll start to see some receptive language skills happening in their brains at the same time. Now, these skills are a representation of a child's ability to understand. Once we have a receptive language repertoire going, here come those expressive language skills, and these tend to develop second and represent a child's ability to communicate. Developmentally expected language for toddlers focuses on their ability to understand and communicate their wants, needs, and feelings. So we want to make sure that we are developing that understanding and communicating. And if you take a quick second, it relates back to the skill areas. So a child's ability to understand is their receptive language. A child's ability to communicate is their expressive language. Finally, to refer back to our growing analogy, language and processing skills in children grow, quotes, over time. So focus on providing babies with ideal conditions and enjoy watching them progress. Kind of like a plant. You don't grow the plant. You provide the conditions, the right amount of water, the right amount of sun. So you're providing the ideal conditions for a baby's brain to develop these skills. So I said that we were going to talk about some resources that would be available after the webinar. Here we go. So you can visit the Online Learning Center and view these related webinars. 1, Rockabye Baby, Infant Soothing Techniques and Strategies. Now, this was an amazing webinar that will expand on the serve and return strategy that I mentioned a little bit earlier. You can check out the InfantToddler series to look at behavior and emotion in the toddler years. Now, this webinar will have a lot of similar content because we're talking about a very specific triad of skills in babies. So if learning about how brain and skills develop, you might want to check out that other behavior and emotions in the toddler years webinar. Finally, you can download our Simple Signs tip sheet from the Online Learning Center. You can look under printed material, printed resources, or free printed resources, and it'll be there available for you to download. Here you see the front page, but it's a 2-page tip sheet. You can also download the serve and return strategy, which is the 5-step verbal and nonverbal communication strategy that will build language skills in babies. Now, the same place that you can go to download this resource, you can also get a demonstration video. So here are the references, and if you check out that last one, it says no author, 5 steps for brain building and serve and return. That's the link that'll take you to the official website where you can download that instructional video. So we're at the end of the presentation. It's the perfect time for any questions and answers. So I'm going to turn it back over to Amanda and see if we have any questions that come into the chat box.
Awesome. Thank you, Philip. I'm going to go ahead and just, as you've been going through the presentation, no questions have come in, but I will go ahead and just do some wrap-up information here so we can give everyone a little bit of time to submit any questions that might be lingering. Let's see here. Okay, for anyone who's watching the recording, you may be wondering, how do I get my questions answered? Well, you can also email your questions to support@kit.org, and we'll be sure to have one of our specialists respond to you via email. And following this session, you'll also be able to take a survey where you can give us some feedback about your webinar experience today. So please be sure to take a moment to give us your feedback so that we can continue to develop content that's valuable to you. And if you're interested in earning CEUs for this webinar, please remember to take the quiz that becomes available at the end of the presentation. Just note that before you can take the quiz, you have to complete the survey. Gonna check back here. All right, we're still waiting to see if anything comes in. Philip, would you mind going to the next slide for me?
Sure. Oh, wait, Amanda, I do see a question here. So
okay, there it goes. It just came in.
We see, do children ever react negatively when their toys are removed? That's a really great question. And the idea here is that if you notice in the video, the placement of the materials was within line of sight of where they were formerly. So we really didn't subtract anything from the classroom. We want to keep them in the same visual field so that a child can see. We just want to encourage them to move mostly from the left side to the right side. Just again, so that where we would have a left dominant interaction, right? I'm going to the left side of the bookshelf to get the toys. I want to switch that over and develop some of that right side dominance or interaction. So no, I haven't seen that babies get upset as long as it's in the same visual field. So we have I understand the reasoning for baby talk. Do you think that it ever becomes too young when parents use it with older children? So that's an amazing question. And yes, it can. I don't want to underplay that there is a cultural component to baby talk. So I am Latin, and in our families, that's not exclusive for Latin families, but in our family, baby talk is this way to convey affection, but it can also be inappropriate. It's like, I don't want you to grow up, so I'm going to talk to you like a baby forever. So I think that the thing here is balance. If the baby is using understandable words, right? If they start communicating with words, that's when I think it's the right time to kind of back off of baby talk. So you've served your purpose. The baby talk demonstrated the sounds, and now the child's using language. So I would repeat or imitate or mirror that language back. But thank you so much for asking that question. And one last one, sorry. What happens when babies aren't walking? Well, if you look at this skill hierarchy, when babies aren't walking yet, then I would focus on the skills that are needed to encourage ambulation. I mean, walking, crawling, scooting, anything like that. I wouldn't focus on the next sets of language skills yet because they really need that foundation of movement. Same thing if a child's not using expressive language, take a step back and work on receptive language skills. So these are all great questions. Keep coming back and don't hesitate, add some more. I'm going to turn it back over to Amanda.
Thank you, Philip. keep my eye out there. We're going to just go through the last couple of slides just to make sure there isn't anything else lingering in everyone's minds. But we do want to make sure that you all are aware of the various services that KIT has available. We hope that you'll take advantage of our online inclusion, our online learning center for other great resources, many of which Philip has gone through in reference today. We also have our call-in inclusion support center, and there's also more information about how your organization can become affiliated with us if you aren't already. So we'd love to just stay in touch with you that way and share more about what you can receive when working with us. And of course, we'd always love to stay in touch with you in a more social facet. So here is the information for our Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and LinkedIn pages. And just going back here, I'm not seeing any new questions popping up. It looks like you did a great job, Philip. Everyone's questions have been answered. And we just thank you so much today for sharing this content with us, Philip. And we thank you all for joining us and taking time out of your day to focus on your own professional development and growth. And we hope that you'll continue to do so and that you'll always reach out to KIT as a partner and a resource for you. And just let us know how any new ways we can assist you in your own professional development and growth. And with that, we'll call it a day, and we look forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks again, Philip.
Bye-bye, everybody.